Instagram stories for Friday, July 19th. I'm your host, Daniel Hill, and this is the weekend edition of the Instagram stories. If you didn't know, I have another podcast, confusingly called the Instagram Stories Podcast, where the one that you're listening to is usually around 8 to 10 minutes and focuses on news. The other show is longer interviews. I typically interview content creators, social media marketers, or people who work at the products and services that I really think all creators and social media marketers need to know about. I get these people to come on my show and in around 20 minutes, get them to share their knowledge in a way that you can not only use, but also apply in your content creation or daily 9-to-5 job. I recently sat down with Amanda Marochko, who is a staff product manager at Buffer. If you're not familiar with Buffer, it's an app that lets you post to multiple social media platforms at once, but interestingly, lets you customize the caption for each social media platform that you're going to post to. So you can easily queue up the content for all the platforms that you want to post to. You can schedule it. You can have specific captions, hashtags, whatever you want to do. It's really a great tool. There's a lot of other things that it does, but that's the main thing it's well known for. And also, I want to mention that I personally am a product manager. That's what I do in my 9-to-5 job. So to sit down with someone like Amanda, who is a product manager working on a social media tool, that was super exciting for me. One of the main reasons that I sat down with Amanda is that Buffer recently unveiled their Threads API integration. Here's what that means. There were many social media platforms that Buffer could post to, and now you can post to Threads as well. Before this point, it was very annoying. You would post to multiple social media platforms and then probably go on Twitter, copy what you just posted there, and paste it over in Threads manually. And wow, is that too many steps? So it's really nice that you can post to Threads, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the places at the exact same time. Okay, here's my interview with Amanda. Today on the show, we have Amanda Marochko from Buffer. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Me too. So Amanda, for people who might not be familiar with you and Buffer, first let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Amanda. I am a staff product manager at Buffer. I'm originally from Canada, but I'm based currently in the Netherlands. In terms of what a staff product manager does at Buffer, I cover a lot of the surface area, which I will talk about in a moment, but I cover a lot of the things like channels and different features and integrations that kind of fall under the channels umbrella. So I'm responsible for our integrations and our ecosystem with other third-party partners such as Meta, which we will be talking about a little bit later. So that's what I do on my day-to-day at Buffer. And then prior to joining Buffer, I was the international growth lead at Shopify. So I helped establish the European, Middle East, and Africa market here as well. So I've been working in this space with a lot of creators and entrepreneurs for quite some time. And outside of work, I run a not-for-profit for women in tech. So in case anyone is tuning in from the Netherlands in particular, that's what I do outside of Buffer.
If you saw my face just now, it probably looked confused because I thought, when do you sleep? That's very impressive. For people who might not be familiar with Buffer, can you tell us a little bit about it? I've been using it as a tool for years. I heard Matt Navarra talk about it probably in 2018 or 2019, and I've been using it ever since. And we'll get to the integration part in the news, but just for people who don't know what Buffer is.
It's funny you mentioned Matt Navarra because he's also my former colleague. So it's a very funny ecosystem like that. But yeah, Buffer originally started out as a social media scheduling tool. We were very text-based, so we really started with Twitter. Twitter was our primary network, but since then we've expanded to have tons of different channels. So right now I think we support 12 different channels on Buffer. So we do social media scheduling, but we also do things like analytics, engagement, but we've also started to diversify outside of the social media scheduling space. Content creation has been really important for us. It's been a really important pillar for us in the last year in particular. So really investing in like the entire content journey, the entire marketing journey. And we've also built out tools like microsites. So now you can have like basically a link in bio type page. We have a free solution called Start Page. So people can set up a link in bio type website as well, which is like super low lift. So we're diversifying basically to cover the entire marketing funnel for content creators and entrepreneurs.
One of the things that I really like about Buffer, and I don't always hear it described this way, so maybe it's just how I use it, but when I come across something that I think, oh, I want to share this, whether it's a link to an article or something I wrote or a video I made, to be able to just put it into one tool and just say, go everywhere. But it should have a different caption for every place that I'm going to put it. And I want to customize that myself. So for instance, what I write about the work that I made for LinkedIn is probably going to be very different than the way I write about it for Twitter. And I can customize it and I can tag different people and I can do all the things. To me, that is the best part about Buffer that I've personally used. Can you talk a little bit about that if you don't mind?
Sure. So I think that's definitely one of the main reasons why people come to Buffer. It's because it is like a centralized hub for their marketing activity. And as you mentioned, like your voice and persona might be very different on something like Instagram versus where it might feel a little bit more casual versus LinkedIn, which might feel a bit more professional. So we do have tools in place. We have an AI assistant, which has been really successful as well to help as well tailor content for the specific networks that you're publishing to. And we're going to continue to build out those types of functionalities in the next year as well to make sure that content creators feel supported throughout their journey. And so that they also have that feedback loop too about what kind of content is successful, when is the best time to post that content, and kind of compare it as well to other networks and other creators within the content space as well. So I think that's a very like common use case that many people who come to Buffer tend to use us for. It's definitely our superpower, and we love to see creators like yourself utilize Buffer for that reason as well.
Absolutely. That's probably my favorite part about it. But my way I use it as well, which I didn't mention before, is through the browser plugin, which you guys support Chrome and Firefox, because I'm personally a Firefox user. So when I come across that article that I want to share, just to be able to tap the link in my toolbar or right click the image and say send to Buffer and just have it go. There's so many, I would say, little parts of the app that again, this is my product manager hat and kind of the way I look at the product, but I absolutely love that. And I think that might be a thing a lot of people don't know, but I think really is a great way to whatever you want to share with your platforms, your network, to be able to do that very easily. So that's one of my favorite parts about Buffer.
Great shout on the browser extension. I think that's probably something that's not widely known, is that we do have a browser extension, and we have this new space within Buffer called the Create space, where we have a functionality that you can just save ideas, and it's now like a kind of Kanban board style. So you can ideate on some of the ideas that you're working through, similar to Trello as an example. So those types of things, when you're in that content ideation journey, like you can just send articles directly to that board. You can work on them throughout your week, and then you can set them to actually be scheduled. So I think that's a different part of the content journey that we've been focusing on. And I think the browser extension is a great way, especially if you're reading articles online or you have other things that maybe you want to think about as part of like your content creation strategy. You can already start sending those to Buffer into the ideas space as well. So that's a new part of Buffer that's just been revamped in the last, let's say, 6 months. We've really invested in that space, and we're going to continue to invest in improving that for our customers as well, so that they can have all of their content also stored in one place, not only using Buffer to send content, but also just using it as a place to also store media and other articles and things like that too.
I didn't know that existed. I can't wait to try that out. I will say also that I think your free tool is underutilized or underknown as well. So if you're a content creator who's just starting out, or you don't really want to have a lot of monthly expenses at this time, whatever, the free version of Buffer supports 3 different platforms right out of the gate to be able to send those posts and do the scheduling and all the things. So I want to highlight that as well, because I think that's fantastic.
Yes, thanks for mentioning that. We have a very generous free plan offering. I think many of our competitors have gone up market to like an enterprise level. But for us, it's always been important to have a very generous free plan offering where you can have 3 channels. You get pretty much all of the bells and whistles within those, at least from a publishing perspective. Of course, if you are starting to get more advanced and you need advanced analytics or engagement features, that's when, of course, the upgrade is required. But for people who are just starting out and they just want to get a feel or a taste for creating content and get into the habit a little bit more, our free plan is very generous, and people can do quite a lot on it already. So I would definitely encourage anyone who's maybe thinking about starting a content creation journey or just trying to get into a better habit of posting more regularly to try it out, because it is low lift. We don't require a credit card or anything like that. They can just sign up and get started right away.
Absolutely. And as somebody makes their workflow, whatever that happens to be, whether you work through a team or you do the editing in CapCut yourself, it's really nice to be able to finish the video edit and then make it go to all those places without going to each individual one, but still being able to customize. I absolutely love that. I'm going to stop talking about all the things I love about Buffer and jump into why you're here today. Recently, Buffer had some big news, and do you mind talking about that, please?
Sure. Yeah, this has been something that we've been working on the last few months, but we recently launched our Threads integrations. As I'm sure many of your listeners are aware, Threads is probably the biggest and latest social network to emerge, especially considering there's been a lot of new ones that have been cropping up since Twitter has been taken over by Elon Musk. There's been a lot of differentiation in the market, especially for text-based networks. So we've seen quite a few users request us to build actually the Threads integration. So I think we had around 7,000 people upvote and request it in our feature backlog. So it's definitely been something on our radar for a while. So we're really excited to get that finally live and out to everyone.
I didn't know it was a thing that you could vote on. I wish I had known. I would have voted. What I was doing was using Buffer to, for instance, post to Twitter or whatever, and then copying the tweet from Twitter and pasting it into Threads. And what a annoying experience. And for me, when I saw this API is coming, and as soon as it was announced, you and the team at Buffer said, this is coming, we're working on it as fast as we can. Really great to see, because now Threads is one of those supported platforms, just like LinkedIn, Twitter, all the other ones. And to be able to post that same content or customize the message, it's just fantastic. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue the discussion with Amanda Marochko from Buffer, talking about the Threads integration. And we're back. As a reminder, we're talking with Amanda Marochko from Buffer, and here's her talking about what it was like to work with the Threads team in order to get this integration completed.
Yeah, there were quite a few people actually who paused on actually signing up for Threads until we built the integration with Buffer, because they were like, it's just too much overhead to actually think about actually having to post to a separate network outside of Buffer and having to manually do that. So we heard from our customers too, they were just waiting to sign up for Threads until we built the integration. So it was a great process. We worked very closely with the Threads team. I'm happy to talk about that journey if it's interesting as well. So when we got wind of the fact that they were building out this integration, they've been really transparent about building in public. So they were sharing a lot of information on their Threads accounts, especially their development team. So their director of engineering, Jesse, who, if you've been part of the Threads chatter, like you've definitely probably seen his stuff, he started dropping hints that they were starting to work on the API, and their development team is quite small. I think it's less than 10 people. So it's been pretty incredible to see how much they've been able to achieve in such a short amount of time. So then we started to get in touch with them around March of this year to just start that process and those conversations. We've worked really closely with Meta in the past for beta launches and things like that. Unfortunately, we weren't part of the beta program for them this time around, but they were in close contact with us to help us get up and running for the launch itself. So what we did behind the scenes is we already started building the integration. We knew what we wanted the look and feel to be like. And then I started sharing some of those early concepts as well on my Threads profile to just say, I'm also building in public. This is what we're thinking. This is going to be the top feature that we're going to be working on once we get access, so that we could start building a little bit of a critical mass around the project as well. And I think it's been great in terms of like our users who have been using Threads. They've been commenting on all my stuff. They've been, even when Threads have been making announcements, they've been like, when is Buffer coming? So from that perspective, we really knew that our users were, representing us as well and pushing the team to also consider us for maybe future launches as well. So once we also had our work retreat, unfortunately, the week that we found out that they were going to actually go live with the API in March. So we didn't have access to it at that stage, but we started to have a bit of a huddle with the engineering team to be like, okay, all hands on deck. Let's just make sure that all of the front end elements are done so that it's really plug and play when we do get access. And then we met the Meta team in person in London at the end of March. And then from that point to building that personal rapport in real life made a big difference as well, because they are a small team, and then having that touch point with them throughout the process has been amazing. And then once we started getting closer to their API release date, they started sharing some documents with us to just get us prepared. And then when the API was released, it took us basically a week from getting the API access to delivering Threads. So I think that's pretty incredible that we were able to ship something in a week. We were definitely trying to be as quick as possible to support our customers. We did a very thorough round of testing, all of that fun stuff, and obviously leaning into, I have nothing but great things to say about working with the Threads team. They were available for us for all of our app reviews, any questions that we had, that kind of thing. They're going to be joining us for a webinar actually. So next Tuesday, which I don't know if this podcast will be live by that point, but
I will try my best, but I don't think so.
No, yeah, there will be a Threads recording, I think, that will live on as evergreen content with the Threads team as well. So they've been great with also supporting our marketing efforts. So yeah, it's been a great process. And honestly, we have some early metrics that are coming through, and it's definitely been one of the largest channel launches that we've had in recent years. So I do hope that there's some longevity there and we continue to see Threads being invested in as a platform, and also that their API continues to be invested in, and that we can continue to just grow on that network as well. The meta networks are very strong networks for us. Like those typically tend to be at least one of the 3 channels that our free users use. So I think long term, it makes sense for them to continue to invest in Threads as well.
That's fantastic. One of the things that you mentioned in that was how interested and invested the community was in seeing this released as soon as possible. And as someone who's been a product manager working on features that you often wonder, does anybody want this feature or is it really that critical? What is it like to have such an engaged community who's clamoring for this? What's that like?
Yeah, I didn't have to do much validation on whether this was something that the community wanted. It was our top requested feature. As I mentioned, I think we had over 7,000 upvotes on our feature backlog. And those are, as you said, you didn't even know we had a feature backlog. So those are 7,000 invested users who had been upvoting it. We knew that there was a strong product market fit with Buffer. It was great for us to continue to build that relationship with Meta. And then as I said, as we were posting online and people started following me on Threads just to get the updates of where Buffer was at. It was a bit of a surreal experience in that sense. But I also thought it was really nice because I was able to connect with our users in a way which I think wasn't as organic on other platforms. Of course, I post content on LinkedIn and I was posting on Twitter, but I felt it feels different. And I feel like we can connect in a more organic way. Most of my followers are people that I don't know in real life, which is very different for me from other networks. So it's been really great to have that like open conversation. And people are reaching out to me even now saying, oh, I have some feedback about this feature on Threads, or I want to connect with you about this. And I think that's also been really nice to bridge the gap with our community a little bit more. So yeah, overall, it's been like a really positive experience. And I think having that early validation and hype around this launch in particular has been fantastic.
I really like that. One of the things I think social media can be used for really well is to show the behind the scenes and the process as something is getting built. But sometimes it's very scary to do that because it's not done yet. So I like your approach to sharing that. I personally did not find you and your account until much closer to launch. So I didn't really have a chance to follow that journey, but I wish I had, because I think that is something that really helps people to connect with who you are and the kind of work that you're doing and recognize the expertise that you bring to the space. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Can I ask you how you've seen people using both Buffer and Threads strategically? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So as I mentioned, Threads feels a little bit different than other networks right now, primarily because you're connecting to a community that maybe is untapped, right? Like other social networks, even Instagram, which is obviously like the partner network. I feel like the content that you share on Instagram sometimes feels a little bit more polished, or you're engaging with your existing followers. I feel like sometimes it's been hard to engage with new followers. Whereas on Threads, it feels very evergreen. Like you can connect with anybody, and I get surfaced content from all different types of people, and people are interacting with it. So I do feel like it does feel a little bit different than other networks, and we're seeing people utilizing Threads to grow their network in a different way. There's a lot of thought leadership that comes with Threads versus a platform like Instagram, and some other platforms feel maybe a bit more like sales oriented or maybe professional in a sense. But I feel like with Threads, you can just be your authentic self and just like throw an idea out there, see where it lands. It feels like Twitter in 2010 almost, where you can put yourself out there in a different way. And I think that's resonating with a lot of folks too, where, a lot of people really agonize over their content creation journey and thinking like, oh, am I wording things correctly? Or should I be using specific hashtags or what have you? Or should I make sure that like the image that I post is like super polished or what have you? Where I think on Threads, people are just sending things out, seeing what sticks. Like their API is very generous with the amount of posting we're able to do as well. So I think that's also been really interesting. And I think it's still early days. We've only had the integration live for a couple of weeks, But in time too, we'll be able to pick up on some trends on what types of content were successful. We can kind of surface that to our customers as well so that they can repurpose or utilize those insights into creating their new content journey in the future as well.
We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what makes Threads special right now and what the Buffer team is going to be creating in the near future. Stick around. Oh, hey, welcome back. Amanda and I continue talking about what makes Threads special right now. We talk about the Fediverse and what Buffer's plans are for the near future. As you were talking about the new communities that are popping up there on Threads, or people's approach is different because it's less polished, I was thinking about how that's obviously very true, but how much of that may or may not be related to the fact that there's no ads on Threads. So therefore it feels I'm not being sold to here. There's just conversations. Do you think that's a factor, or is that just my
absolutely. It's absolutely
experience?
A factor. Yeah, it's 100% a factor. I think people feel like Threads feels very organic, and that is Buffer's specialty too. So it really fits in well with what we're trying to achieve long term. We're completely an organic platform. We don't do anything with ads, which is also quite different from other competitors in the space. Like, we really want to support content creators who maybe don't have a big budget to spend on advertising. That's something that aligns very closely with our values, which is why Threads felt so important for us and our specific users who utilize Buffer. I hope that they don't change that. I think that is what makes Threads particularly unique. But who knows what the future has in store for us as well. And I know we didn't touch upon this yet specifically, but decentralized social networks are something that we're currently investing a lot in. And the fact that Threads is planning to be, I know that they're working on it right now, really part of the Fediverse and investing in having users having ownership over their content as well. That's something that really aligns with our ethos as well at Buffer. So we support channels like Mastodon already, which is also another decentralized network. And we do plan on supporting Blue Sky very soon. Maybe around the time that this podcast goes live, we will be up and running with Blue Sky. So this is the space that we're planning to operate in moving forward, because we think that this is the future of social as well.
I love that. For people who might not be familiar with the Fediverse as a concept, could you give a 30-second explainer? I know, but I want, if you don't mind, going ahead with
Sure.
that.
Yeah, I think it is a quite complicated concept. So you can read like a lot about this in particular. But the Fediverse and decentralized social networks is basically a concept that allows you to post your own content, and it's not owned by a network. Right now, you're posting content and it is owned by LinkedIn or owned by Facebook or what have you. But utilizing something like the Fediverse allows you to post content, but it's your own content and you can share it to multiple platforms. It is the future, I think, of social, because right now, especially I live in Europe, so things like GDPR and privacy and data ownership and all of these things are becoming super important. We're seeing this now in the United States with TikTok as well. So I think just ownership over your own things is something that is top of mind for a lot of people. And I think that the Fediverse could be an answer to a lot of these concerns around like ownership and data and things like that. It's definitely something that can be a quite complicated concept. And I think Threads is very accessible to a lot of people, whereas maybe other social networks like Blue Sky and Mastodon are more for advanced users in this space. But at least with Threads, I think a lot of people are going to get exposure to that and start opening up their horizons to these types of opportunities as well.
That's a great explanation. I think one component of it, and I'm not sure if this is actually launched yet or just in the roadmap, but is to be able to also take your followers with you, right? So if you have built up a large following on Twitter X and then they do some changes you don't like, what can you do with that audience you've built, right? You technically own that audience. And I think over the years, people have said, oh, that's why you need an email list and that's why you need a podcast and that's why you need it. But shouldn't you be able to take those followers and say, I'm going to move them over here? Not a message that says, hey, follow me on this other platform, but rather really be able to move those connections over in some manner. So I think that's also a key component, whether or not that's built yet or exists to be able to transfer. I don't think it's there yet, but that's something I'm personally very excited and invested in.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. And also, there are people who build communities on their own websites or what have you. So I think because the content is standalone or their followers are standalone, it opens up a world of opportunity where people can just own that themselves and use their own website as a way to promote content. So our founder, Joel, Gascoigne, who, if you're following Buffer, he posts a lot of great stuff. He's utilizing like the Fediverse at this moment to push things to his own personal blog. So if anyone wants to check out his website, I think it's joel.is. So you can see what that kind of looks like in real life, since he's been playing around and like hacking things for that too. If someone just wants like a concept of what this could be.
We'll link to this in the show notes so people can check it out. Amanda, this has been fantastic getting to interview you. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk about all these things. Do you mind telling us where we can follow your journey online and what we can look forward to you and Buffer creating in the near future?
Sure. So you can follow me on almost any social platform with @Marochko. That's my last name. That's a good thing about having a unique last name, is that I can monopolize those handles. So you can follow me there. And of course, it's @Buffer for any Buffer related content. And in terms of what's coming up next in our pipeline, we are going to be investing more in Fediverse type channels. So Blue Sky is on our radar. We're hoping to launch that before the end of July. We will be looking to support more flexible types of scheduling in the future as well. So we're starting to look at potentially supporting things like custom channels, looking at bringing back Instagram personal profiles as a notification-based channel. So that's something that my team has been working on. We will be looking at investing more in our engagement features as well. And then just overall investing more in our content creation tools. So if anyone has any ideas or feedback, we're very open and accessible on any social network. So just feel free to ping me, and I'm happy to hear any ideas as well.
Amanda, we're really looking forward to all of that. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you too.
Okay, that's it for my discussion with Amanda. For being able to follow her online and Buffer, check out the links I included in the show notes. Be sure to come back next time. I actually have an interview with Jen Herman, who is the author of Instagram for Dummies. You can find her online at Jen's Trends. She's been on the show before. She's shared her insights. Be sure to come back next time for that.
Let me tell you a couple things that you should know about me. A product manager, but do not have a bachelor's degree. But actually, that's factually a fraction of me. Another fraction's posting content irregular and irrationally. Still probably won't get a job at the Gram. They forgot, they don't know, or don't care who I am. That's why you never see me at the parties and events. My lack of followers must make me irrelevant. Don't have a course, a book to sell to make a bag of grand. Not a social media marketer, don't represent any brands. Plain to see, don't have an agency, but I got a lot of spam. Just putting in the work, without the glitz and glam. Won't catch me eating fish, unless it's shrimp or clam. No six pack, no risk that, there's a gym card in my hand. Don't have a full-time job, but I got a lot of plans. Stay plotting, dropping knowledge on TikTok and Instagram.
By the way, does Buffer support TikTok? I've never personally used it that way because I post from CapCut to TikTok, but does Buffer support it?
Yes, we support TikTok. We are, unfortunately, the API is a little bit limiting on what we can do, but we do support direct scheduling. So because of the way that TikTok works, as you probably know, as a maybe power user of TikTok, if you're using CapCut, I assume you're a power user of TikTok. Trending sounds and things are important. Because of the licensing required for trending sounds, they aren't able to surface that endpoint to us in the API. So while you are able to directly schedule, unfortunately, that last mile component is really important for a lot of folks. So that's why we're looking to support more flexible ways of scheduling through a reminder flow. So we're planning on supporting a notifications-based flow for TikTok soon as well, so we can enable users who maybe just want to be reminded of it and finish off the last mile features within Buffer and then within TikTok as well.